Hi, I'm Sadie Woodley with the Great Catholic Book Club, and today we are going to talk about rap. And this is going to be a long form video because this is going to be an artistic analysis. So we're going to take the time to really get into the art. But first, really quick, we've had a lot of people ask how they can support us since we're not charging anything or just doing free will donations for the book club and all of that. The best way, if you want to support what we're doing here, is to hit like and subscribe and hit the bell for the notifications on YouTube, because if we get enough subscribers, we can monetize these videos. I know it would seem like a channel called the Great Catholic Book Club would probably have a very small and niche audience, but there is a YouTube channel where a lady plays Meghan Markle's mole. And so it's just a talking mole on the screen, and the mole says uncharitable things about Meghan Markle. So that lady has thousands of subscribers. If she can do it, so can I. Go ahead and please hit like and subscribe and the notification bell button, and that would be the best way that you guys could support what we're doing here. Back to the video. Let's talk about Kendrick Lamar, Good Kid, M.A.A.d City. But first, let's talk about talking about it. Should we talk about rap? Can I listen to rap as a Catholic? This is actually a pretty big deal, for a lot of people who converted to the faith or they've reverted to the faith. You say, okay, I lived a life away from the Lord, and now I've come to the church, and you don't know how much of your old life you're supposed to totally leave behind and how much of it you bring in with you. What would you do with your past life, with the life that you lived before coming to the Lord? Is it all bad? Is any of it redeemable? I think this idea of integration, right, of being integrated into the whole, this is a pretty serious deal for Catholics, even cradle Catholics who have always practiced their faith. But the idea that you don't want to disassociate, you don't want to be fragmented. You don't want to be a Saturday sinner, Sunday morning sitting at the feet of the Father, as Talib Kweli has said. You also don't want to pretend. Another thing that people do is pretend that the facets that don't mix with the faith just don't exist. You can rationalize, you can justify, you can decide you won't think about it. So there are a lot of ways to be disintegrated and have all these different parts of yourself not really click together well. One example for me has been yoga. Before coming to the Lord, I loved yoga. Okay, I taught it. I was a serious practitioner for many years. I think yoga is beautiful. I love the mind, body, and breath connection. And I'm really like a fitness, I'm a kinesthetic physical person anyway. It's also a form of worship. It's also worship of Hindu gods, which I don't want to do. That's not good for me for two reasons. One would be because I actually heard the arguments against it for why Catholics should not practice yoga. And I found the arguments to be valid and well-reasoned. And the other is from my personal experience. That's not what I want to do. That's not good for me. However, there's some good I am seeking with yoga. There's some good that I'm looking for. Yoga is beautiful. The good in it, that physical connection to the spiritual, that's really something so holy and so wonderful. And I started to realize that yoga is so beautiful that it belongs to Jesus, rightfully. That's where it needs to be. Can yoga be sanctified? Yes, of course. Right? But how, right? On a practical level, what does that look like? So for me, what that looked like was, first I look at the thing and I go, what good am I seeking in it? For me, it is the idea of this moving meditation, that to worship with my body, which is, of course, that's a very Catholic thing. We kneel in the pews, kneel, stand, kneel, stand. I've heard that called Catholic calisthenics, and I'm into it. I like it. So this idea of a moving meditation, what I ended up doing was creating a moving meditation rosary. So you can do this. Something I really like to do is with Bishop Barron's rosary videos, but you can also do it through an app, or you can just keep count of the rosary in your head. But you can actually move along with the rosary, and you can do postures that remind you or get you deeper into the particular mystery that you're studying, that you're really meditating upon. So, if I'm doing the carrying of the cross and I'm really thinking about that endurance, that's a time where I could get into a physical posture that is enduring and is causing some of that discomfort and some of that sensation. And I can do the same breathing as I say the Hail Mary. This is something that I find so rewarding, to do this moving rosary meditation. I love that. It's a beautiful form of worship. And this is something the Catholic Church has always done. It's looked at pagan culture and found the beauty in it and sanctified that and brought that into the church. So yoga can certainly be sanctified. A lot of it is you have to exercise the gifts of creativity that the Lord has given to us. And some of it involves healing too. Like maybe, for me, I had to take a break from yoga for a long time to let it heal and let the associations with Hinduism sort of fade. And then I was able to come back to it and create basically my own form, right? And turn it into a Catholic moving meditation, a rosary meditation. You're supposed to do that, right? So in that sense, you can take things in that way. You can take things and you can sanctify them and bring them into the fullness of the faith. So what does this have to do with rap music? So you can probably guess or see where I'm going with this is, how do we sanctify rap music? Now, for me, I have loved rap music since I was a kid, growing up in Chicago, 90s rap, early 2000s, tween 2000s, whatever you call that decade. I love rap. It speaks to me. I consider it one of my favorite genres of music, and I have a very, very deep emotional and intellectual connection to rap. Also, there is a lot of rap that is rough, objectively sinful, bad content that actually really wasn't good for me. It infected me spiritually in a lot of ways. The bad stuff did. And so when I came to the Lord, my first response to all the art that was consuming up to that point, not just rap, TV shows, everything, was just do a full detox. I cut everything out. Only thing that I consumed for a long time during this detox phase was explicitly Catholic hymns, Gregorian chant, the works of the saints, the teachings of the church. And I really just full on immersed myself to get that deep healing. But then when that was there and that was solid, then you start thinking, but the identity that you have, right? Your music preferences, your artistic preferences, these expressions of who you are, I'm in a place where I really want to start exploring that. And when it comes to rap, one of the biggest reasons I always loved rap and felt such a connection to it is because of the spiritual elements. Rap is full of spiritual elements, probably of all the forms of music, outside of explicit Christian music. When I think about what Christianity meant, I wasn't raised Christian, right? My parents are from Pakistan. I'm a first generation American, child of immigrants, growing up in a Muslim home, Muslim family. So I'm giving my perspective of what I saw in America growing up from a first generation perspective. And what I saw was that there appeared to be two different versions of Christianity. There's a white Christianity and there's a black Christianity. There's a white America and there's a black America. Now, of course, there are other ethnicities. I'm living proof of that. But the dominant cultural narratives, when you're looking at what kind of art a nation, society produces, right, that you can consume. You're looking at their music, you're looking at their movies, you're looking at their TV shows. First of all, that's very much tied to language, right? What's the dominant language in a country? And English is the dominant language in America. And the art produced in American English falls very cleanly into either white cultural perspective or black cultural perspective. And the interesting thing is whether you're talking about white American artistic background or black American artistic background, they're both completely authentically American, right? But they're two completely different cultural perspectives and two different artistic perspectives. The two faiths that I'm dealing with here are, there is a white version of Christianity and there's a black version of Christianity. And they're both Protestant. I knew that there were Catholics, obviously, and I actually went to Catholic school for a few years. So that makes the things I'm about to say that I used to believe even more scandalous, because you think I would have been taught this stuff in Catholic school. I did not equate Catholicism with Christianity. I thought that Protestantism was Christianity. I don't know what I thought the Catholics were. I thought it was some hereditary thing, like you're born Catholic. I didn't even know as a kid that you could convert to the Catholic Church. I think I was like over 30 before I realized that people could convert to Catholicism. So, I mean, I didn't know. When I thought of Christian, I just thought Protestant, like as a default. I don't even know if I would have used that word because I didn't really understand, too much. Both these versions, Black Christianity and white Christianity, they're both Protestant. These are both Christianity and they're both Jesus, but it seems to be two completely different religions. What I knew of white Christianity was like the cultural stuff that I was exposed to, like, the televangelists, the prosperity gospel, like it was a very sanitized, suburban, honestly, it was like very shallow. I'm not sure what it stood for or what its purpose was. And on the other hand, I really connected with the African American experience of Christianity that was really tied to suffering. It was really tied to the struggle. There was a real depth there. These were real people dealing with real struggles, and they needed a real faith. By the way, that's a Catholicity in African American Christian spirituality that I didn't know at the time. I couldn't have put those into words, right? But it seemed to me that whatever the faith was that was being described in African American art was a faith that could really help you. Unlike when I would look at the sanitized televangelist white American Christianity that seemed to me, I don't want to say entirely useless, like this is a God that could help you out if you'd like to drive a nicer car, but if you needed to deal with some real things like loss, grief, death, trauma, poverty, injustice, oppression, real pain, I just didn't see how that version of God connected in any way. The Christianity that was being expressed in the rap music that I consumed just really spoke to me. There was a rawness and a vulnerability and a realness. Now, I do want to say here that I don't want to give the impression that there's no bad rap that is like shallow and awful and just obsessed with materialism and wealth and it's fluffy and stupid. Like, of course, there's really awful rap like Drake. I'm kidding. I'm not even a hater on Drake like that. That's just a funny thing to say then. Sorry, Drake. Come to the Lord. Jesus loves you. So, but if I'm focusing just on the spiritual content, right, of the art that I'm consuming, there was a way that African American art spoke to me as it expressed spirituality, spiritual needs. And there was a depth and a realness to it that I just really, really connect with. It's like this deep need for spiritual help, a real need for God, for a real God that comes into your experiences. This is a God that comes into your pain and stays there with you and is there for you and gives you strength through that. Now, I do want to say, like, growing up as a Muslim kid from a Muslim background, that still didn't mean I understood anything about Christianity, right? I did not get Jesus. Like, I didn't get the whole salvation and dying for your sins and, all that theology didn't make any sense to me. What I could connect to was the longing, right? That need for something real, to be really, really seen and loved, be seen in the depths of your pain, the realness of who you are, and have a God step into that and love you in that. And that is something, rap music is so saturated with. It's so beautiful. Good hip hop and how it expresses spiritual needs and spiritual longing and the value of what the Lord brings to you. That's there. And specifically getting back to Kendrick Lamar and his album Good Kid, M.A.A.d City, it's so Catholic. Why do I say that? So let's give you a little background of Good Kid, M.A.A.d City. This is a concept album. You kind of have to look at it like, if you're going to listen to the album, it's like you're going to read a book. Or you're going to sit down and watch a movie. You're going to sit there and consume the whole thing because it's telling a story. This isn't the kind of album where you're going to like listen to one song or something like that, just like here and there individually. You're not going to listen to it at the gym. That's not true. backseat freestyle, I will totally bump that in the gym. Never mind. Okay, so there are some bangers for good singles there that you can use. But the whole concept of the album is to tell a single coherent story. So there's a narrative. So it starts with Kendrick Lamar. He's 17 years old. It's semi-autobiographical. He's 17 and he is driving to this girl's house and he's very excited. He's been talking to this girl all summer and she invites him over and oh my goodness, he's, possibly going to enjoy some intimacy for the first time. And that's, it's a very 17-year-old boy kind of thing. And as he gets there, he realizes that this girl has actually set him up to get jumped by a couple of guys from a rival gang. Right as this act of violence is about to occur, it cuts to a skit of a voicemail that his parents are leaving for him, asking him where he is and, being worried about him and telling him to come back. Then at that point, the songs continue and you go to a flashback to earlier that day where he had borrowed his mom's van and he's sitting by himself in a park and he's kind of pondering the fact that he has a producer that's interested in him. He's getting a record deal. He senses that things are really about to change in his life. It seems like he's going to have a chance to be successful and that his artistry is going to help him with that. And then he meets up with his friends. And even though he is generally not the kind of kid that drinks or smokes, the song, The Art of Peer Pressure, one of them kind of talks about how despite his own values, his values aren't solid enough to stop him. He's with these friends. The company you keep has a lot to do with how your life goes, right? And so he ends up engaging in this behavior. He ends up smoking and drinking and doing these things that he doesn't normally do. And, as the album progresses, he finds himself participating in a home robbery and narrowly escaping getting caught by the police. There's a couple of tracks where he kind of reflects on the oppression and the poverty and the police brutality and just sort of the ugliness of the world that he has to navigate. And that's where he's a good kid, but he's growing up in the mad city. He's growing up in these really difficult circumstances that make it pretty much impossible for him to stay pure or stay innocent. And then you get back to what happens after the robbery. That's when he tells his friends, he's going to now go and meet up with this girl. And then he goes ahead and then the story jumps forward to after he gets beaten up by these guys and he comes back to his friends and they are trying to help him feel better about what happened to him by encouraging him to drink. And so there's a really beautiful song called Swimming Pools. I am a recovered alcoholic. I've been sober for over 14 years. And this song, that experience of not knowing what else to do to cope with a lot of overwhelm besides drink, even knowing this isn't going to do anything good. It is one of the best songs on alcohol dependence that I've ever heard. Then the skits towards the end of the song show that his friends got the idea that what they should do is help him get revenge on the girl and the two guys that she had beat up Kendrick. And so they're going to go back there with a gun and they're going to shoot at them and threaten them. And the guys end up shooting back. And Kendrick's friend Dave is shot and killed in front of him. And then the album turns to pain and grief and Kendrick realizing that this isn't worth it, the ugliness, the emptiness, the death, that this is not the direction that he wants to turn to. And then towards the end of this song, a woman, kind of an older woman in the neighborhood, it's not identified who it is, finds these boys and accosts them and confronts them. So I know that you've done sinful things and you are thirsty for Jesus. You need the Lord. And she walks them through a repentance prayer and they accept Jesus into their lives. So, this is an explicitly Christian album, right? This album is about Christian redemption. And then Kendrick Lamar does just this beautiful intercutting in the song of voicemails from his parents. They're leaving voicemails telling him, look, we really want you to focus on your music and the incredible way that your talent and your gifts will get you out of these circumstances. They're telling him they heard what happened to his friend and they're sorry and they love him and they care about him. And then there's a great song where he does some really deep self-reflection on his life, the things that he's liked, the things that he's gravitated towards, the choices he's made. And is that what makes him real? Is that what makes him valuable? There's a wonderful intercutting of his dad, a phone call from his dad saying, what makes you real is taking care of your family. That's what makes you a real man, taking on that responsibility. So the album ends with a loss of innocence and acceptance of these circumstances, but this beautiful decision to commit your life to the Lord and really have that radical transformation. Let that grace do its work in you. So as much as this is an explicitly Christian album, it is important to say there's a lot of profanity, there's a lot of sin, there's a lot of crudeness, there's a lot of ugliness in that, right? When you're looking at that, I think you're kind of weighing, you've got the crudeness, you've got this ugliness. What do you do with this, right? And I will say that this content, like the swearing and all this stuff in the album, is not for the purpose of glamorizing the sin. These are things that have to be, and there's a valid narrative use of these things. In the first song, when he's describing sort of like the lustful thoughts that he's having, he's describing the mind of this 17-year-old who is so distracted by lust that he's not able to think clearly and consider the dangers of the situation he's walking into. There's good reason for him to make the song the way it is. And later when he's with his friends in the car and there's a lot of bravado and bragging and there's a lot of like really crude, locker room talk kind of stuff, that too has a valid narrative purpose, because it's showing how he is a person trying to fit in and trying to sort of live up to a persona that he doesn't feel authentic in and he doesn't feel comfortable in. So, that's a very valid narrative device too. The same thing, the swimming pool song, to really describe the ugliness of alcohol dependence. That's necessary. These are things that illuminate the art of what he's produced. It's not sin for its own sake. And I think another important thing to remember is that consuming content about sin can't be intrinsically wrong just in and of itself. If that were the case, you couldn't read the Bible. There's plenty of sin in the Bible, but it's redemptive. It's for the purpose of allowing us to see the contrast from human motivation and human action before the Lord enters the picture to the change that those graces cause in the interior life and the exterior choices of that person. It reminds me a lot of reading the Confessions of St. Augustine. When you read that, that's his autobiography. The dude was like a full-on sex addict. It really talks about his addiction and the things he wrestled with before his conversion. The description of sin, whether you're talking about Good Kid, M.A.A.d City, and whether you're talking about the Confessions of St. Augustine, and whether you're talking about Genesis 3, the point is not the sin. The point is to paint a picture of the grounds that the Lord is entering to redeem it. And so Good Kid, M.A.A.d City is a beautiful example of showing what it was like, what happened, and what Kendrick is turning to after what happened, right? What he is like now. And the story really of how he came to the Lord and his Christian identity today. I've talked about how this is an explicitly Christian album, but what about this album makes it Catholic? Right? As opposed to Protestant or sort of a nondescript, generalized, vague Christianity. What makes Good Kid, M.A.A.d City a Catholic album? And I'm re-listening to it and consuming it fresh through Catholic eyes. First of all, this is something that I touched upon earlier with a lot of rap content when it comes to spirituality. It is that centrality of the struggle. Something that makes African American Christian spirituality so Catholic is that there is a very definite focus on the crucifix as opposed to the cross. This is a cross with the bruised and battered body of Christ on it, and he is in that struggle with you. This is not the cross where the body is removed and everything is sanitized. This isn't a use of Christianity to sort of hide your shame, paper over it, and pretend everything's perfect. This is Catholic. Right? This is like, we're looking at the suffering, we're embracing that suffering, we're embracing the redemptive value of it. That the suffering, the adversity, the pain, you're unflinchingly looking at it and you're seeing how it transforms you, right? With the grace of the Lord, this is what makes you wise as a serpent. This is what brings you to the Lord. That's being in the trenches. That's Catholic. Okay, like a Christianity that is in the trenches is Catholic truth. But, we covered that a little bit earlier. I think the main thing I would say that makes Good Kid, Mad City so Catholic is this focus on family. So the Holy Family, right? It's only the Catholic Church, it's only Catholic theology that focuses so much on the Holy Family. Yes, it's Jesus. He came incarnate as a baby into a family. It is Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. They are the Holy Family, and they are the model. They are the perfect family. It's the perfect mother, the perfect father, and the perfect child. And this model of the Holy Family is the light that guides us. And there is so much Catholic theology focused on the Holy Family as that light, that guiding post that will always keep you on track. Now, there are a lot of criticisms of the Holy Family. I've read comparative religion scholars, women's studies scholars, all of that, attacking the concept of the Holy Family and saying that if the Catholic Church really wants to step into modernity, step into the century, they need to get rid of the Holy Family. It is alienating. It is despair-producing. It's a standard that no one can reach, and so we need to get rid of it. The Holy Family hurts people, right? We don't need that. I could not disagree more. In fact, I would say that what Kendrick Lamar shows in Good Kid, Mad City is the Holy Family. Kendrick's mother and Kendrick's father and Kendrick, they are the Holy Family. There is a perfect example of real life people living up to that perfect ideal standard that Joseph and Mary and Jesus set. When you are consuming this album, when you're listening to it, yes, there's a lot of oppression. Yes, there's a lot of poverty. There's brutality. There's crime. There's sin. But what Kendrick has is a mother and a father who are united together and then focused on him and their commitment to their child. And they love him and they're there for him. And he has this solid home life. He has these parents that love him. He has this beautiful family that loves him. I would say I was pretty privileged. I was this pretty spoiled kid. Like, I experienced really horrible poverty and bad things for many years of my life later, like when I ran away from my home at 17. But growing up, I had a solid upper middle class, private schools, educated parents, blah, blah, like everything on the outside looked really, really good. And I would say, as privileged as it looked, I was so aching for that kind of loving home, right? For those parents that like know you and love you and care about you and center you. That was something totally absent for me. That was not in my experience of childhood at all. And I will tell you this, and all the money in the world does not make up for a lack of a loving home life, for a lack of parents that really love you, for a home life that is warm, nurturing, affirming of your identity. Poverty, trauma, pain, sin, all of those things are horrible. But then if you go home and your home life, there's instability and ugliness, there's a lack of relationship, there's a lack of love, you don't even have those relationships to turn to help you cope with what's going on outside of your home in the world. You don't even have those solid relationships and love. When I listen to Good Kid, Mad City, I'm listening to Kendrick Lamar describe having parents that care about his inner world. Like these are parents who care about his art. They see him as a person. They listen to his music. They support his music. They don't do this from an instrumentalizing perspective. Like they're not looking at his artwork and his talent and the potential he has for success. They're not looking at it in an exploitive or a mercenary way. Like, wow, he'll really make us look good or he'll really make us money. So again, it's not instrumentalizing him. It is genuine. It's for his own sake. They see him and they value the art that he produces for his own sake. And this is really a recognition of a child's personhood. It's about genuinely caring to know your child as a person. And I would say the absence of that is unfortunately pretty common, maybe a very universally recognizable situation for a lot of kids. I remember growing up as a kid, like I used to love writing fiction, and my parents weren't interested in reading my fiction. I wanted to, showed it to them a bunch of times. And of course, at a certain point, when you're not getting a response, you stop sharing your world with your family, because they were too distracted by their own wounds, their addictions, their immaturities, all the reasons why they just could not have interest in me as a human being. And this is unfortunately a reality for many, many children, that they want to be seen and affirmed by their families, and showing your parents the art that you made. See, really, that's a bid, for your parents to connect with you and to affirm you. And that's why, as an adult, like as a mom today, it's so important to me as a parent to like really affirm my children when they share their art with me. My daughter made that beautiful picture. It's a version of our logo. She made it herself. She made the Great Catholic Book Club Marian image. And when she showed that to me, I'm to really like look at her in the eyes and be like, I see you. I see you. I see the art you're producing. I see you as a person. I see what you're trying to show me. That's everything. That's everything. And that's family. That's parenthood. That is the Catholic truth of the Holy Family. That can never be some unattainable ideal. If you have a man and a woman that are committed to each other and love each other, and the children that their love produces, they are now committed to those children. Maybe there's crudeness, maybe there's rough edges. That does not make them any less holy. You have to look at it from God's perspective at what this family is. And you're seeing a perfect recreation of the Holy Family in what Kendrick Lamar is presenting as his family life in Good Kid, M.A.A.d City. These are people who love their son and see their son. And, it's devastating when you don't get that. Okay, this is the second time I'm quoting Talib Kweli lyrics in this video, but there's a song of his called Joy, and he's talking about parenting. And he's saying you're so busy ignoring them, you can't see what they're showing you. Like that's the condition for a lot of kids. You have parents that are so busy ignoring you that they can't even see what you're trying to show them. And a holy family is one that is committed to truly seeing and valuing and treasuring their child. So while the adults in Kendrick's life in Good Kid, M.A.A.d City have these rough edges, they are there to give him what he really needs. They're there to give him spiritual support. They explicitly bring him to Jesus Christ. They show him how to turn to the Lord and rely on the Lord. They join him in prayer. They give him real advice and real guidance that's about it's willing his good, right? Not as an object for their advancement or their happiness, but for his own sake. How can he really have a life of purpose and meaning and love and depth? And how can he do real good in the world? And these are parents that love him and they're there for him. And these are the things that give you real meaning and value in life. There's a lot of focus on the corporal works of mercy, and then there's the spiritual works of mercy. And I'm not saying the corporal works of mercy are not important. I mean, obviously, like poverty, Pope Francis has said that poverty, material, physical poverty in the West is a horrible scandal. And that's absolutely true. To quote Tupac, I mean, they got money for wars but can't feed the poor. The fact that as wealthy as we are in the Western world, that there's child poverty is disgusting. So the corporal works of mercy, and no one knows that like the Catholics, right? I mean, check out like what the Catholic workers do, Catholic charities, like actually out there helping people with physical material poverty. There's also the spiritual works of mercy. There's also spiritual poverty. And I'm trying to remember off the top of my head a quote from Mother Teresa about how the poverty of the West is a spiritual poverty. We can't conceive of a world where maybe your physical needs are not being met. Maybe you're dealing with like externally difficult circumstances, but if your spiritual needs are met, if you are loved, if you have relationships, if you feel wanted, you feel valued, you have purpose, you have meaning in your life, you have love in your life. I mean, we can't even imagine in the West, that you could do without. And speaking about the other extreme, right? Because we have a lot of income inequality. So there are people who just have so much useless wealth that they're completely addicted to. And the idea of telling a person like that, if you had none of that, if you had a very ascetic, bare bones lifestyle and none of these luxuries around you, but you had real loving relationships, like your marriage was like some real stuff, that you could like hold on to, that vulnerability and that intimacy and your friendships and your relationships with your children and with your own parents, like if those relationships were real, you wouldn't even miss any of that stuff. That would mean nothing. So that's the poverty of the West. That's the spiritual poverty. And that's something that Jesus Christ brings to you, right? That the graces of the Lord, and I've only seen this articulated in Catholic teachings. What the Holy Family stands for is not some fake, sanitized, papered over version of perfection, people who are perfect according to the world's terms. They never struggle, they never have any problems. There's no shame, there's no pain, there's no trauma, there's no grief. That's not what the Holy Family is. It's a misunderstanding of the Holy Family. The Holy Family is a place where you can know that you have real unconditional worth, you have unconditional acceptance, you are genuinely loved. And that is the standard for a holy family. And that's why it's something that we need. You can't get rid of that. That's the most beautiful thing that's ever existed in this earth, right? That's a reflection of the love of the Trinity, the relational love of the Trinity. The other really Catholic message of Good Kid, Mad City is that you're capable, you uniquely have a story to tell. Your life, who you are, it's irreplaceable, it's indispensable, it's unrepeatable. And that beautiful particular story, that needs to be joined to the universal. You're on this life for the purpose of taking your unique story that only you could live and you could tell, and telling it, sharing it with the Lord, making it part of the communion of angels and saints. And that's that's so Catholic. So that's why I love this album. And when I'm coming back to rap music and I'm coming back to this album and I'm able to experience it through Catholic eyes, I would say, like, now seeing it through Catholic eyes, I love it even more. I couldn't see all of these things before. I made a video, the last video was about bad art. Bad art is an attempt to sort of distance oneself from God and almost to desecrate God, to try to widen the breach in that relationship. So what's good art, right? Good art is trying to close the gap in that relationship. Good art is trying to say something true about God. It's trying to say something beautiful and bring you closer to the Lord. This album undeniably does that. It's true. It says such beautiful, true things about the Lord. And the true things that it says are, well, they're Catholic. Because if it's true, first of all truths anywhere in the world, they flow like a river towards the repository of the Catholic Church, right? And if it's good and true and beautiful in any tradition or in any culture, it's Catholic. That's where it all gathers. That's where the fullness of truth gathers. But it's also explicitly Catholic as it is because of this focus on the Holy Family and the beauty and redemptive power of relational love, of family love, to give purpose and give meaning. But it's also so Catholic in its illustration of the Holy Family, and far from being something remote, something unattainable, something that exists just to make you feel judged. The Holy Family is, in fact, this beautiful truth that manifests everywhere you see a mother and a father loving their children, seeing their children, affirming their children, lifting their children up so that those kids have that opportunity to share their unique self and their unique story with the universal. That's what the Holy Family stands for. And man, Good Kid, Mad City. Now, I do want to say, as a note of caution, for people who are listening to this video who are not really familiar with rap, who've never listened to this album before, you might not care for it. You might find some of it a little shocking and a little scandalous. There's a lot of crudeness, there's a lot of profanity, there's a lot of obscenity. And if rap is not your kind of music, I don't know if this album is going to make you fall in love with it. But if you love rap, well, then you already know this album, right? And Or maybe you're an old head like me and you stopped listening to rap, a while ago and you want to get back into it. Check out some Kendrick. Listen to Good Kid, Mad City. Man, it's Catholic. It's beautiful. So thank you so much for sharing this journey with me. God bless you, and we'll see you in the next one.